Oh, that's cute. Our first featured speaker this morning, he's going to be giving a presentation called So You Want to Be a Professional Angler. He's from Cullman, Alabama. He fished for Auburn University and graduated in 2013 with a marketing degree. So those kids that are out there, that's key. That marketing degree, you learn how to sell, you'll have a job the rest of your life. I don't care what it is. Hopefully it's fishing. He fished the Bassmaster Elite Series for the past 4 years. He's back-to-back Bassmaster Classic champion. Never been done. He will compete in MLF Bass Pro Shops Tour in 2019. It's my pleasure to introduce to you Jordan Lee. Give him a good hand.
Yeah, thanks. What a good crowd, and I'm honored to be here, and definitely exciting. I just wanted to really kind of tell y'all my story, but not really just talk about me the whole time, because I really don't like to do that. But I really want to, just tell y'all my story and how I kind of grew up and got started, and it may inspire some younger guys. I know we got a very mixed age group in here today, so I don't want to just speak to the high school anglers, but I just want to kind of tell y'all my story, and it may take one person in here and inspire them to want to be a pro angler, or it can I can tell y'all the kind of the ups and downs that I've had throughout my short career. I haven't been fishing for that many years. So, we can get started. I got a slideshow with some cool pictures, kind of starting, from when I was just, 10 years old all the way up till now. So if I can figure out how to work this. So, early beginning. So, this picture right here, I just kind of want to explain a little bit. This was like the first day I got the fishing bug, and I still have the picture. Really remember this day vividly, where, as you can see, I wasn't in a $50,000 bass boat. I was in a little John boat, and I was at my grandfather's pond, and caught some big fish that day, and that was kind of the day that I really was like, man, this bass fishing thing, this is awesome. And, I didn't really grow up with a lot of people that fished in my family. I'm sure there's many younger guys in the crowd right now that, your mom and dad may not be tournament fishermen, or they weren't, at least when you started. And that's kind of how I was. I really didn't have somebody, really telling me exactly what to do or where to throw. I just kind of went. And so, I was about 10 years old in this picture, and like I said, no one in my family really fished. So this was all new to me. I mean, I didn't really know anything about it. I mean, we didn't have, I don't think we had YouTube. So, I was really, just reading a lot of different Bassmaster magazines and just trying to learn everything. I watched all kinds of old Bassmaster videos just to, gain knowledge, because I didn't know much about it. And, I was fortunate enough to have a few buddies that got me into tournament fishing. I didn't, like I said, I didn't know anything. So I was just starting fresh. I mean, I think I had one rod and reel in this picture to my name and a pack of Cincos. I mean, I think that's all I had. So, you can really start with, my point there is you can start with literally nothing. I mean, you can start with a John boat with not even, I don't think I had a trolling motor on that boat. So you can start with anything, and you don't really know exactly where it's going to take you. So I see a lot of people that are just getting into it, and they may not have a lot of finances, or they may not have a ton of different combos. Well, you don't need to. You just you can start with anything, and you can really, build on that and kind of make that into, whatever you want to. And that's kind of anything in life that I've seen so far. I mean, you don't have to start with a lot to, make a dream or make a career out of it. And, also the last bullet point there, I mean, self-taught, I mean, I've already reiterated that is, I really just kind of taught myself everything, and that just comes from time on the water, a lot of, days spent on the water, and I was lucky enough, too, that my parents, they supported me, so, they were definitely, pushing for me to be on the lake, and so I spent a lot of time on the lake, and, just kind of learned, picked up a few things here and there from some people, but it's really just a lot of trial and error, and then that's kind of how I, at least started, and still to today, that's kind of what I do. I want to go out on the water and, try to learn as much as I can. So this is before high school fishing was cool. I mean, I'll be honest with you, I don't think there was maybe a couple people, 2 or 3 people in my high school that fished or cared about fishing, and those kids, they didn't fish with me or anything. So I mean, it was just kind of just me. So it wasn't a big deal at all. It wasn't really the cool thing to do. But I started in a junior club. There was one junior club, I think, in the whole north of Alabama, just one out of the whole, I don't know what I'm trying to say there, but there wasn't many. There was not many junior clubs. So I found one in Fayette, Alabama, just a small little town, and my mom would actually take me to the meetings. And, my dad would, or my mom, sometimes it was just my mom. I remember we would drive to the tournaments, and, there'd be 7 or 8 guys in these tournaments, 7 or 8 kids, and, fish. And that's kind of what I had. That's really how I got started. And a couple of these pictures from the bottom, that's what those were from. I remember, just small little club tournaments, just really simple. And got to see some new water, and I didn't really know much about the places we were going, but just kind of went out on a limb and did it and had a great time. Met a lot of cool kids, and kind of learned a lot about fishing. And it was really my first step in tournament fishing, was just those small, club tournaments. And I'm sure a lot of you in here, that's kind of how y'all got y'all start. And it can take you a long ways. You can meet a lot of great people from that. So if you're not involved in tournaments, or you're not involved in, I know we have a lot of high school anglers now, and it's a really big deal. So it's cool to see, and use that to your advantage. I mean, high school fishing is, it's crazy how far it's came, since those days where we didn't have it. And, I think you hear that a lot, but it's really an awesome program that, you can go really far with it and really jumpstart your fishing career if that's what, the routes you want to take. I know yesterday I was thinking about this. It says co-angler. I think somebody asked about, like finances. I know that's really a big setback for a lot of people, and because fishing, it is an expensive sport. I mean, I think we all can agree that, it costs a lot of money to have a boat, to, put gas in the boat, to tackle. I mean, it adds up. Trust me, I definitely know. And co-angler, fishing co-angler is just an awesome way to, where you don't have to break the bank to get on the water. Tons of great anglers out there. I could name them all over the map that have started out as a co-angler, whether it's in, just local tournaments, I'm sure, like the Bass Federation or like local BFLs, things like that. And it doesn't really matter your age either. I mean, I think you have to be 16, but this is a great way to learn. If you're really wanting to learn and wanting to get into tournament fishing, I mean, I fished my first year was as a co-angler. I remember, the anglers I was fishing with, I didn't feel like that they were just, these superstars, but I did pick up on a few things. And you can really build off that. So if you're, trying to kind of figure out what you want to do, co-angler, fishing as a co-angler, the back of the boat is, you're not going to break the bank. You don't have to have a bass boat. You don't have to have any of that. You can just, jump in it. So it's a great way to learn, and you can take those experiences later on down. You can see a lot of different lakes. Definitely one of the best ways to learn. So yeah, these were the days of Mom taking me to the boat ramp. I mean, that's really what she did. I mean, Dad was always working. She would take me to these tournaments, and had a great time with it. But it was definitely some fun times for me, and it's cool to look back on it. But just to kind of show you all that I didn't start I didn't start just right out on the pro tour. I mean, I had a kind of a path, and I took those steps to get where I'm at today. It didn't really just happen overnight. So this is one of the slides that I know that it probably is one of the kind of the hot topics is sponsors. And everybody may have a different opinion on sponsors, so to speak. For me personally, I didn't have any when I was, like let's say in high school, going into college. I'll tell you all a cool story, or not really a cool story, but my first sponsor was actually this company that was it was just a clothing company. And I remember when I was in high school, I was probably in the 10th or 11th grade, and I saw all these guys on TV. I saw all these pro fishermen. They had all these logos. And I'm like, man, if I want to be a pro angler, I'm going to have to see if I can try to get some of these sponsors. And I started on the internet, started looking around, and contacting these like rod and reel companies. And I was like, I'm fishing this tournament circuit next year, and I'm looking for some sponsors to try to help me out. Well, needless to say, they didn't want to help out a kid that didn't really have anything to offer them. And so I really realized real quick that just me being who I was, just a kid trying to fish a tournament circuit, that I wasn't going to get sponsored. I wasn't going to get gear because I didn't have any value. I didn't have anything to give them. You have to, the biggest thing you have to think about it when you, let's say you approach a company, is what do you have personally to offer them? Do you add value to their company? And it took me a little while to realize that I didn't really have a whole lot of value to give to them. I mean, I was just, like I said, I was just a kid from Coleman, Alabama. Didn't have, a lot of experience or anything like that. So, needless to say, I did find a company that wanted to help me out just a little bit. I think for a tournament win, I got a couple $100, and I thought that was just the coolest thing ever. That a company was, going to pay me, a little bit for some success. But I learned from it. This company's not even around anymore. So, but I did learn from it that I wasn't going to get rich off sponsors at that age, at that level. I wasn't going to have a ton of logos, and I kind of engraved that in my mind as I have to have some value to give to these companies, and it's going to be a long time before I get to that level where I feel like I can offer them something. And The second bullet point here is, worry about putting fish in the boat. The rest comes with it. Sponsors are a big part of what I do now. I don't want to come across just telling y'all to not try to focus on the business side, because the business side of it is a big side of it for me now. Back then, not really. It was where I realized then that I have to be a really good fisherman to make it to the highest level. I mean, I have to. I'm gonna have to figure this out. It's not like you can make it to the highest level just by being average. So I really wanted to, prove to myself that I could catch fish, and I could, make it to the next level, whether that be, fishing BFLs or fishing the opens, and, really wanted to focus on getting there. College fishing, that was my goal. It wasn't focused on, sponsors. I wasn't focused on the business side of things. I was focused on catching fish. And that was really the most important thing that I learned, at that age was, trying to figure out the fish, and the rest will come with it. So this was a cool slide I was thinking about when we were making this. Was I felt like this would probably be some of the better advice that I could give to anybody is, stepping out of your comfort zone. It's something I did when I was, in around high school. Was, I kind of stepped out of my comfort zone in tournament fishing, and I didn't really. I felt like that helped me more than anything too on down the road was fishing against different level of anglers. And I know I could have stayed in a junior club, and I'm not saying that was an awesome way to start. High school fishing is an awesome way to start, awesome way to get into tournaments. But if you're able to, and you're old enough to step out of your comfort zone, and like I said, this can be for any age. This can be for your weekend guy that's fished for 30 years, and you kind of want to maybe take that next jump, but you're not really sure. Well, you don't know. You don't really know if you don't try, and that's kind of where I was at. I was like, if I want to do this, professionally, which some of you may want to do, even if you don't, it's still just the competitive nature that I think we all have is, as tournament anglers, whether it's walleye, whether it's bass. And, I can speak to the bass crowd better, but I know walleye's the same way. Tournaments in general are the same way. Making that next jump, you don't really know if you don't try. And you just don't be afraid to, you push yourself. And that's what I did. I had doubts. I'm not going to lie that, okay, can I do this? Am I going to look stupid to show up to a tournament and finish dead last? But I took those risks, and you have to take those risks in order to get to your final goal. So that's what I did when I was in high school. I jumped in, fishing against a lot of older guys, and that's something I challenge. The younger crowd is, if you're fishing high school tournaments, that's great. But if you're allowed to run the boat, and you have some money saved up to jump in a bigger tournament that you're fishing against full-grown men, do it. That's the best way to gain experience, and that's probably my biggest number one. If you can do that and get that out of your mind, that you're not fishing against just certain people, and you're just focused on the fish, that's really the number one thing to kind of break out of your mind, is not worried about the age group you're fishing against, but just focus on the fish, and you'll be really surprised how you do, and it really takes it all the way to today for me. When I go to a lake, like if I go to Grand Lake and I'm fishing against Jason Christie, well, yeah, he's got he's got 30 years of experience on a lake, but I still got to go there. I still got to fish against him. And if I want to win, I can't have the mindset of, oh, I'm going to Grand Lake to fish against the best guy that's ever fished the lake. I mean, I can't worry about what he's doing. I have to focus on what I can do. And, that's one good piece of advice for anybody. And it's not always about winning either. I wanted to get that across too. For me, when I was starting out, just local tournaments, I won a few every now and then. But I mean, overall, it wasn't about winning. It was just about competing. It was about the competition. For me, I mean, to get at the highest level, it's not like you have to win 100 tournaments. I mean, I've won a few throughout my career, but it's so hard to do. It's really just about the competition and being consistent, and that's kind of that's what can get you to the highest level, is just being consistent. It's not all about the wins. I mean, there's guys like Gerald Swindle that he hadn't won a tournament in a long time, and if he was here, he'd probably be yelling at me right now. But he hasn't. He's a great example of that. But he has the personality. He has other attributes that not a lot of people have, and that can get you up to a pro just as easy as winning big events. So there's all different ways to get to the end goal, but a lot of it is about competing for me and showing up and wanting to give it everything I got and be 110% into it. We'll go to the next slide. So college days. So you can see right here, I didn't always catch big ones. I know. I figured y'all would like that picture. That was definitely not a keeper. But these were some of the coolest days for me. I remember at home when I was still in high school, when I remember sitting on the couch and it was clicking through the channels, and I remember college fishing coming on TV. And I was like, are you kidding me? Like, that was the first time that I saw that. I'm like, that is awesome. And I wanted to go to Auburn always. That was kind of where I just wanted to go to school. And they started, they had a fishing team. And so I was like, this is going to be a perfect fit. This was long before, this was just starting out. They were just now getting some TV exposure. Nothing what it is today, but it was 10 years ago. It was 2009. That's when I started in the college days. But college fishing really allowed me so much more than I could have done at a local level. You saw a few pictures before of a few local BFLs that I've won in the past, and college fishing did so much for me that, I mean, if you're a high school angler and you just want to, whether you want to do it for a living or you just want to just take your fishing to the next level. I mean, there's a lot of college anglers in here right now, but this is definitely the route to go. It really opened up just tons of opportunities for me throughout my career. To some of the sponsors that I have today, I wouldn't have got if I didn't fish in college. Carhartt was a sponsor and still is of the college bass, and my brother and I fished those. We won Matt one year and I won the other, and that really kind of got us tied in with Carhartt, and is still one of my bigger sponsors today, just because I fish college fishing. So you have opportunities all over the place, whether you see them. I didn't even see that at the time. I mean, I was just showing up and we were just having a good time and fishing tournaments. I mean, that's kind of what we did. I didn't realize all the opportunities and all the people that I met, throughout my time in school that was going to, when I made that jump, that I was going to run into. So you don't know the people that you're going to meet, but you definitely are going to, have those, Yamaha, David Edner. I mean, I remember seeing him at college tournaments, and now I'm a part of their team. So it's really you don't get that at a local level. So you really have to. For me, it was about like mixing the two. Fishing college, but jumping in local tournaments as well, and challenging myself, not just to get stuck on maybe a team format, but jumping in boater events and just really mixing it up. College fishing for me, the experience that I got on different bodies of water was really priceless. Just to go to different lakes all over the Southeast to see a lot of different water. I mean, that was really one of the biggest probably positives of college fishing, and it helps me still today is, remember going to Florida for the first time, and I went to Okeechobee in college fishing, and I still take those memories and use them today when I go back. But I never would have been down there and never would have seen the lake if I didn't fish in college. I still would have been, around the regional, and then that really helped me become a pro angler. Was, just getting all the different experience and the exposure, which that's the next point there. It was really priceless, the exposure that I got from, winning the college national championship. Actually, it wasn't a national championship, it was the bracket. And that was really a dream come true to win that. And that's kind of what I prepared for my whole college career. I knew that I wanted to try to do it for a living. I knew it wasn't going to be easy. But fishing in college, it gave me the opportunity. There is an opportunity that you have like no other, was to jump into the Bassmaster Classic if you win the college bracket. And that was something that was kind of engraved in the back of my head all through college. Was, hey, this is a golden opportunity if I want to try to do this to make it to the next level. And that's really why I just focused on college fishing for the most part, just for that one reason, that you could make it to the Bassmaster Classic, the biggest tournament you can be in, and you can make it from college fishing. So the exposure of it's definitely one of the biggest parts of the college fishing, and that you don't have anywhere else. So turning dreams into reality. This was kind of the first stepping stone for me after college. After I won in, I guess it was 2013, and I got to qualify for the Classic. I was a kid right out of college, didn't have much money, but from winning that event, I got a truck and a boat to use for the year. That's the opportunity that college bass still does to today. They still give the winner a truck and a boat to use for the year. And I think they actually pay your entry fees to the Bassmaster Opens. So still a great opportunity. And I know a lot of the kids that have came through it now that have won. A few of them have turned full-time pro. But this was really one of the stepping stones for me to turning making my dream come true. I got to fish the Bassmaster Classic. It was on my home lake, and that was kind of my golden opportunity to make a name for myself. And you really need those kind of defining moments to be a pro, or, you don't have to, but they definitely help. To make it full time is, at the highest level of professional fishing, it's not the easiest ride. So when you get, things like this that happen, it's definitely a bonus. You need everything you can get. But yeah, so this was really a great experience for me, fishing my first Classic, and this was my first kind of, eye-opener when, Van Dam's pulling up beside you and you got all these big names. And I was a little starstruck, I'm not going to lie. I mean, it was definitely, I was 22, I think, at the time. So, I'm fishing against, the biggest names in the sport. So, it's just a great experience, though, for me, knowing that, I did well in that event, and it gave myself the confidence that, hey, it's not about who you're fishing against. It's not about that. It's about, dialing the fish, and, I could preach that over and over again. But that's really the one thing I took away from that classic, and, it gave me enough money to fish for the year. Otherwise, it would have been tough. I mean, I had a few sponsors. None of them were actually paying me at the time. You can see Carhartt was actually on my boat there, but they were a part of the college fishing, and that was just really the start for me. And it was a great opportunity. But it all relates back to, I was just focused on that dream, and college really gave me that. I mean, I couldn't have got it from not going to school and, not being a part of the team. So just one of those opportunities you just don't get. So finding my way through the open. So, there's a lot of guys in here that may be wanting to jump into the opens to try to, qualify for the elites or and this doesn't even have to relate to just the opens. I mean, there's a lot of AAA level events, whether it's walleye. There were a lot of learning curves, in this right out of college, right out of the classic. I had to qualify for the elites. They didn't give me a handout. They weren't like, well, you did, you won the college classic bracket. Here you go. Here's a elite series invite. It didn't work like that. I had to work really hard that year, and I had to qualify against everybody else. I was on an even playing field with everybody else. And to get through the opens was, being right out of school, I kind of set myself up where I didn't have a whole lot of other distractions. I mean, I didn't have a wife at the time. I didn't have any kids. It was just kind of me on the road, and, I didn't have a job. I had, little money from fishing, and that's really all I had. I had a truck and a boat and, some gas money, and just kind of went for it. And that's really what I had to do to make it, and what a lot of guys have to do to make it to be a pro. It's not really, it wasn't a lavish lifestyle that year, I'll tell you that. I mean, we stayed in some pretty rough places. And, my first tournament I started, I think it was at Toho, and it was my first open. And I'm all excited, fresh out of college, I'm just ready to go. First time to Florida, I'm like, this is just going to be great. This is going to be so much fun. And I think I finished 120th or something like that. And I was like, man, that was pretty tough. I mean, that was a tough pill to swallow. I'm trying to qualify for the elites in my first open. I'm in the bottom of the pack, and I'm like, this is not how it's supposed to work out. But that being, I just wanted to say that it wasn't like I wasn't. You don't have to win every tournament. You're gonna have those. You're gonna have those downfalls. You're gonna have those tough events, and it's really all about how you bounce back. And the next one I think was at Lake Amistad. Of course, never been there, and it was a really tough bite. But I figured a little something out, and I ended up coming in, I think, 4th place in that one. And, that was really a confidence booster for me. And that's something you need when you have a tough tournament. You got to keep fishing. You got to, stay on the path. And I was really just all in my year out of school. I was living, my parents let me live with them again. So I was that kid, but I wasn't really even there. I mean, I fished as many events as I could that year after school. So, and that's really the best time to do it. I mean, I'm speaking to a lot of younger guys right now, but if you kind of want to, if you want to try it, I mean, and if you save up some money, I mean, you can do it. I mean, you don't have to have the best rig in the world, but you have to be all in if you want to make it to the top level of any sport. I mean, I think it's the same for football or for anything. I mean, you really have to be all in and put everything you got into it. So that year I qualified for the elites, and it wasn't easy. I fished all nine opens and qualified through one division to make it on the elites, and it wasn't just easy. It wasn't just easy goings from there either. So you make it to the professional level. You did all that work, and you're like, man, I got it made now. All these sponsors going to come in, and they're going to, I'm going to get paid. So, it's not how it works. I mean, even after all the success that I'd had at a young age, I thought making it to the Classic and coming sixth in the Classic as a college kid, you'd think, man, the sponsors are just going to be pouring in. But it's still not how it works. I mean, I still had to prove myself at a high level in order to build those relationships and to get where, I wanted to get. So I did use those relationships I had from, college fishing, from just growing up around the sport. And, I had some companies come together and help me out. I mean, your rookie year, I mean, that was just kind of survival mode still, was, just trying to, get enough to just fish. I mean, so, my entry fees for the elites that year, for the last few years that we fished them, were $48,000. So, I mean, that's a lot of money from as a college kid. I mean, you don't have just $48,000 laying around. So it was either I was going to just come up with it, or I was going to work on, using my relationships that I had in the past to get those companies to help me out just a little bit. And that's what I did. I mean, the phone calls weren't just coming in. I mean, I had to make calls. I had to use those relationships. But that was the time that I needed the sponsors the most, was when I made it to the top level. I didn't really necessarily need them when I was in college, or it would be nice to have. Actually, at Auburn, I'm kind of backtracking, but at Auburn, we weren't even allowed to have sponsors. It was a school. It was like a rule, for like SEC. We couldn't even have companies. We couldn't be associated with companies like on our jerseys. But, this was kind of the time for that, and definitely had, some companies help me out. And, I was able to scratch up enough money I don't think I had my entry fees paid for that year, but you're basically just thrown to the wolves. You're thrown to fish against the best guys, and it's definitely not it's not an easy going. I mean, very few people, kind of make it out alive, so to speak. I mean, in the fishing industry, I mean, once you make it there, it's like it's just 10 times harder to you had to push yourself that much more to just stay in the elites. And that's kind of something I just wanted to get across, was it's not just because you make it to a high level doesn't mean you're automatically going to stay there. You have to work just as hard on the sponsor side of it. You have to work just as hard on your fishing game, and you're fishing against guys that, for younger kids coming in, you're fishing against guys that have tons more experience than you, and you have to take that. I mean, it's not. I just wanted to kind of get that across, that it's not just but it's doable. It is doable. I mean, there's guys that come in every year that do really well, and I've made a good living because of fishing, and I wouldn't have those opportunities really anywhere else. So it is doable. It's just it's not an easy path to get there, like anything. So it's definitely a lot of work. And decisions on the fly, that's one thing as far as fishing goes related I wanted to, just kind of mention was, you're throwing on all these different bodies of water, and decision making is really probably it's probably one of the best things you can, try to practice on. And just it's all about, tournaments and experience and, making those decisions when you're on Lake Champlain and, you don't really know the lake at all. And it's all about those decisions. It's not really about how far you can cast anymore. It's not about how, what bait you're using. It's about where do I need to go make my next cast? Where do I need to go to make my, catch my next fish? And that's really the only difference when you get to that level is you got to make those decisions quick because somebody's always catching them, and you got to definitely be on top of your game. But the rookie year for me was a good learning experience, and the other part of it, as I'm getting close to wrapping this up about kind of my experiences, having a support group. You hear guys talking about it, that they couldn't do it without their support group, but to have my wife now, at the time she wasn't, but to have her support you 100% in what you're doing, and to have your family, my mom and dad were very supportive when I was younger. When I was in high school, college, they were extremely supportive, and they always wanted me to have a rod and reel in my hand, and they definitely helped me out on boats when I was younger. Sometimes they weren't the best, a few of them were a little bit beat up, but they worked, they got me around, and they were always very supportive of me. And, these were just a couple cool little memories that we put on here. You can see in the top right, I think that was one of the classics I won that, she put in my boat that morning. And that's the kind of things that you have to to fish. You have to have that support group that's going to tell you to trust yourself, and that goes a long ways. Really, if I had to do it by myself, I don't know if I could be here. I don't think I could, have won the events that I've won, and it just makes it so much easier to have a family that definitely roots for you and is behind you all the way. Another part of it, as I'm getting down to the last few minutes, staying positive. There was a lot of times, I'm telling you, when I was not the most positive person, and you see that from a lot of different anglers. You see, the you're just always down in the dumps because you feel like you can't catch a fish. We've all been there, but staying positive, having an outlook that there's always the next tournament. I've been down at the bottom, and next event you come back and you're on top of the world again, and that's just competitive fishing. That's what we all love about it. But staying positive is definitely one of the main things that I see out of great anglers. I see out of your Gerald Swindles, your Van Dams. Guys like that. Those are positive guys. You don't see them over there, crying because they didn't catch them one day. They're always, trying to stay positive, and it really reflects on, their fishing. Life-changing, yeah, these moments for me were definitely life-changing. My life got a lot busier after I won the classics. I've been asked that, how did it change for you? Just gone a lot more from home, but it's all a blessing to me. I've really enjoyed everything, all the places it's brought me, and it's definitely been a lot of fun, and it seems like a dream still, winning 2 tournaments like that, but it's been a lot of fun. And yeah, I mean, that's pretty much it. Just wanted to, kind of run down how I got started, and hopefully that shows you that, you can start with just, a little john boat in a pond. I mean, you don't have to have, you don't have to have a $70,000 bass boat to get started in fishing and, to make it where I've made it. I mean, you can really start with anything, and now that's kind of the point I wanted to get across was just that. So thank you for all coming out, and I really appreciate it.
Awesome job, bud. So we're going to take questions for Jordan during the pro panel. He'll be on at 1:30. When we start that, it'll be Mr. Keenan, Mr. Lee, and Mr. Stroshine. And so I'll start thinking of questions for Jordan during that time. I want to thank you for that insight. Yep. It was awesome, and it's applicable to anything you're fishing, any species. So awesome. Thank you.
Yep, appreciate it. Thanks.
Our next speaker is currently residing in Alexandria, Virginia, or somewhere nearby. He graduated from Pennsylvania State University with a Bachelor of Science degree in engineering, started his career at Boeing Helicopter. He quickly realized that wasn't for him and needed to get into the fishing industry. He went 20 years in Central Florida overseeing 10 fishing publications, including fishing and boating magazines like Saltwater Sportsman and Sport Fishing, and then also got involved in television with Sport Fishing Television. He was recently promoted from vice president to president of the American Sport Fishing Association, and that's our industry organization. So he's at the level where he sees it all, and it's great to see him here at a grassroots level and willing to speak at this event. He serves on the Recreational Boating and Fishing Foundation Board of Directors, the Center for Sport Fishing Policy Board of Directors, the Outdoor Recreation Roundtable Board of Directors, but most of all, he's got a passion for the sport in the industry that will become evident very quickly. Let's welcome Glenn Hughes.
Thanks, Pat. Can you guys hear me? Is that working okay? I appreciate you being there. Don't everybody leave. People are walking out. I know, Jordan Lee, I haven't won any fishing tournaments, not a single one. I've only competed in a couple of them. But I do absolutely have a passion for this sport, and I'm really excited the fact that you guys have come out here this week, first week in January in Minnesota, and I was excited to be here when Pat asked me a few months ago. And so, I want to extend a thank you to Pat and Stephen and what they do for you guys. It's a lot of time and effort, and it's because they love the sport, and it's because they love you guys and everything that goes with it, so I really appreciate what those guys do. Let's see, are we coming up? There we are. So I'm going to talk a little bit about me, but I also want to talk, it's still there. I want to find out a little bit more about this audience that's here. So I can't see you that well, but how many of you folks are from Michigan? Okay, a handful from Michigan. How about from Wisconsin? A few more. How about from Illinois? Just a couple. And then Minnesota. Lots of Minnesota. I think there's some South Dakota, North Dakota folks here also. Any other states? Any other states? Shout them out. All right, good. That's a pretty good mix. I grew up in Pennsylvania, outside of Philadelphia, and I spent my summers on the water in the Poconos of Pennsylvania. Anybody ever been to the Poconos? One person? A couple of people, okay. So the Poconos are known for just an amazing place to have a honeymoon, if you're back in the 1950s. But that's not the place to go anymore. So when I grew up, I'm the youngest of 5 kids. Actually, I have a twin brother. Of course, that's me on the on the windshield. My brother's probably stepping on my back right now, and my other brothers, my parents. I was fortunate enough to grow up on the water up there. Since 1963, we've been enjoying that place, and I still enjoy it today. My father's 90 years old, still lives in the house that we bought way back when. And so I loved being on the boats. I love being on the water, as I know all of you do too. I think we all have that in common. And so even to the point, and by 20 years later, I was actually living on my boat up in Connecticut. And so it wasn't the best fishing boat, but we could catch bluefish there in the Long Island Sound. But living on a boat is a great experience. If you haven't done it, I suggest you give it a try for a couple of years. And do it before you get married, though, if you can, because wives don't tend to like this as much. And these photos, of course, they're not as crisp and clear. It looks like there's probably 1920, but this is before cell phones. We didn't exactly carry cameras everywhere to take pictures, and so that's why they look like that. But I do catch fish. I love to catch fish. I love to catch all kinds of fish. I love to fish in the freshwater. I love to fish up here. I love to fish on the West Coast. I love to fish in the South. Man, I love saltwater fishing. I love catching big fish. I don't mind catching small fish. I love catching, it could be shallow water, it could be deep water. Some of these photos get kind of cut off. That's about 150-pound tarpon in the top left. And it's just, God, I love to fish. I love to fish for big fish. It could be sailfish. It could be tuna. It could be other offshore pelagic species. That's not your father's Lew's fishing reel. That Penn 130 is about a $1,200 reel. And God, I love bottom fish. Anybody like to bottom fish? You can catch all kinds of neat species when you get to be in the publishing world. I got to publish his magazines for close to 25 years and got to do a lot of pretty cool fishing. I love to fish with friends. I love to take friends fishing. I love to help them catch their first fish, their biggest fish. And I can't, the stories we continue to tell about some of these fish that were caught many years ago. You get to fish with cool people, like that's Wild Bill from Deadliest Catch there in the middle. He is a wild guy, for sure. I don't mind if the fish are small. I'll fish from a rowboat. I'll fish from a center console. I'll fish from a kayak. I'll fish from your ice house. This was last winter here in Minnesota. From a dock, that's a sinkhole in my backyard in Florida. Talk about fish in a barrel. That sinkhole was awesome. There was a lot of fish in there. I love taking pictures of fish. I love taking pictures of sailfish and all kinds of other fish. I just can't get enough of that. And as important as anything, I love to teach and take kids fishing as well. Even here in Washington, D.C., we're able to get kids out on the water and make sure that they get a chance to learn a little bit more about what it is that we're so passionate about. Most importantly, I love taking my son fishing. Teaching my son to fish and having him grow up, that kind of a smile, it still chokes me up. It is the best feeling in the world when you're taking these kids and specifically your own family fishing. And as time goes on, we got to catch more fish and catch more different kinds of fish, neat fish. And sometimes they were real bruisers like that trout. Other times, they weren't so big, but we still had a great time doing it. And now, at 25 years old, my son's still fishing, and he actually works for the Florida Fish and Wildlife Commission. His job in Florida, teach people how to fish and increase participation in fishing in Florida. I'm a proud papa, and I can't say enough about how exciting that is for me. It's all these kind of opportunities are out there for you as well. He now gets to participate with me at our trade show, ICAST, in the summertime, at our sport fishing summit. I love this kid, and I love the fact that we get to enjoy our sport together. So this passion of mine and of yours, it actually brought me to Washington, D.C. about 5 years ago. I had the opportunity to be in the publishing world for fishing for 25 years. When you're in your 20s, it's sort of like you don't really know what's going on. You're trying to figure it out. You get to your 30s, you get married, maybe you have kids, and you've got to really start trying to get money in, and you save money. And you get in your 40s, you think you've got it kind of all figured out. By the time you get to 50, all right, I'm going to ask the question, how many 50-plus-year-olds do we have in the room? All right, it means that we've got more than half, less than 50. That's good. You think more about that giving back. Now, some of you have started giving back way before then, and I appreciate that very much. At some point, you just say, gosh, industry's given me so much. I can't believe how great and how blessed I've been. And so the predecessor to me, you may have met him here a couple of years ago, Mike Nussman, I've known for about 20 years, talked me into coming up to DC, and he thought that this would be the right position for me. I wasn't sure about it, but I am now. This job has again introduced me to a lot of great people. So I get to mix it up with people like Greg Sheehan. He was head of Fish and Wildlife Service. You know, Ryan Zinke was our Secretary of Interior. You've got Chris Oliver, who's the head of NOAA Fisheries. You've got our Secretary of Commerce, Wilbur Ross. These people are influential people. These people are making a difference in DC, and we have a chance to have a seat at the table with them through our organization. Get to meet with the governors, you know. So Governor Scott in Florida, he's come to our trade show 5 years in a row. I asked him, you must go to a lot of trade shows. He says, no, only yours. It's the only one I want to go to. So he even invites myself and my son to his house for dinner, the governor's mansion. But you also get to hang out with people like Governor Hogan of Maryland or Governor Herbert from Colorado. It's important people. I also get to hang out with these other House of Representatives and the senators. So folks like Representative Whitman from Virginia, one of the best anglers you'll ever run into. He could outfish most of the people here in this room. MacArthur, he's got a $2 million boat he let me ride there in the Potomac. Senator Rubio, our old company, we sold him his 25-foot center console. People like Garrett Graves here on the lower left, he is the key guy to the Modern Fish Act that I'll talk about in just a minute. Steve Scalise in the middle and the bottom, he's the guy that got shot up just a year and a half ago. And yet, you know, we have a bond because we're from the same fraternity from different schools, but we're able to do the handshake when we see each other. And then you get together with, you bring folks together. So Representative Green in Texas, when the Bassmaster Classic was down there, you know, I get to introduce him around to the different folks that are employing people in the states and are making a difference when it comes to the industry. I also get to go to some neat spots like this was the grand opening for the Wonders of Wildlife. How many of you folks have been to the Wonders of Wildlife yet down in the Bass Pro Shops in Missouri? There's only a handful. I suggest you go down. It's a pretty cool spot. And I got to do it with President Bush and President Carter and Kevin Costner and all these folks. And so I have been so lucky because I like to fish. Trade shows in Japan, grand opening, they like to do a ribbon cutting. I get to go to the European Fishing Tackle Show. This one was in Budapest. And so my life is good. I even decorate my fish for Christmas. Anybody else decorate their fish for Christmas? Am I the only one? Maybe I should stop that. So what? So what, Glenn? You guys don't want to hear that. You guys are captains and guides and professionals and the kids coming up here. Well, Pat had me come here because he wants me to talk to you about what you can do, in your role and where you are, and how you can make a difference to ensure that we can keep fishing and that we can have others go fishing with us. So a little bit more about the association. We are the Industry Trade Association. We represent the best interests of our sport fishing industry and the entire recreational fishing community. When we talk about entire recreational fishing community, we're talking about 49 million people that went fishing this past year. We're leaders in conservation. We think we're leaders in trying to get participation going, but we got a long way to go. And then we also are doing a lot in terms of commerce, like with our trade show, ICAST. Our objectives are very similar to what your objectives would be. We want clean water. We'd like abundant fisheries. We'd like access to those fish. And we want to increase participation. I think those are tough to argue with. A lot easier to say than do, though. The companies that we represent, these are all members. This is just a handful of the membership of ASA. It's most of the rods, the reels, the lines, the lure companies. Yamaha's an incredible member of ours as well. And it's the tackle boxes, the fishing nets, the marine electronics. They're all a part of our association. One, you got to be a member if you want to go to ICAST. But two, because they know that it's important that they're contributing to what's going to make sure they can stay in business. Our membership distribution, I know it's, you guys in the back, you may want to consider moving up because some of these numbers, they look really good to me right here, but they're pretty difficult to see in the back. It just gives you an idea that you can see we've got more than 30 members in Minnesota and 25 in Wisconsin, 31 in Michigan, and 29 in Illinois, and they're really throughout the country. We have more than 800 members, mostly fishing tackle manufacturers and allied manufacturers like Costa Sunglasses as well, or AFSCO clothing, things like that. So, I'm here to tell you about things that you're supposed to do. Number one, this is really easy. Buy fishing tackle. When you buy fishing tackle, you are keeping these businesses in business, and you're also helping conservation. So let me talk to you about that for a little bit. Did you know? All right, this is an ugly graph. This is a government graph, all right? And I know in the back there's no way you can read it. I'm not sure if you can read it in the front. I'm going to describe a few of the elements of it. In 1950, the Congress passed the Dingell-Johnson Act. This is the Sport Fish Restoration Act. Show of hands, how many people know about the Sport Fish Restoration Act? It's okay if you don't. Wow. See, these are the things that we need to make sure that you guys are aware of. It's so important, because when you buy fishing tackle, you're supporting conservation. And it's through this act from 1950. As a matter of fact, starting since 1952, there's been $9 billion spent on conservation because of this act. Even in the last 10 years, it's been $1 billion. So every time you buy a trolling motor, the trolling motor companies, Minn Kota, Motor Guide, they're signing a check every quarter for 3% of that money goes to conservation. When fishing tackle companies import product from, I'll say Asia, about 80% of the fishing tackle is imported from Asia. They're paying between 3 and 9% on that as import duty tax. That's going to conservation. When they sell fishing tackle, the first time sales, whether wholesaler, distributor, whomever, up to 10% of that's going back to conservation. I say up to 10%. It's different pricing. Rods, reels, lines, and lures, it's not all the same. Tackle boxes, it's not all the same. But ultimately, it's about $150 million a year where you buy your fishing tackle and gear, they're giving that money back to conservation. You combine that with motorboat fuel tax. Fuel tax is a big one, and some other interests and things. And it comes up to about $650 million a year. It's going to conservation in the big middle box. And then it gets divided other ways. You know, there's different administration things and Clean Vessel Act and all. The bottom right, 57% of that, 650 million, gets distributed back to the states, okay? Maybe somebody learned something there today, but this is important. Another bad graph. You can't read it, I know it. The point being, though, that how do you decide who's going to get the money? There's two ways a state gets the money. 40% of it is based on the size of your state. You're not going to be able to do anything about that, I don't think. So states like Alaska, Texas, California, they've already maxed out on the money that they can get each year because they're just that big. The second part's important is 60% of it's based on how many fishing licenses your state sells every year. So, give you an idea, this is the sport fish restoration funding that your state got. Again, in the back you can't see it. So in Minnesota in 2018 you got $12.5 million. In Wisconsin you got $11.4 million. In Michigan you got $10.7 million just for sport fish restoration money. It all went to a pot to the federal government, and then it gets dispersed to each of the states based on your land mass and based on the number of licenses you've sold. So just to give you an idea, right now, around the Great Lakes, you've got 21 projects in Illinois worth about $9 million working. You've got 20 projects in Michigan worth almost $20 million working. You've got Minnesota, 9 projects, $14 million. Most of this stuff is about access. They're going to build you new boat ramps. It's about sport fish restoration. They're going to clean up the habitat in a particular area. And the hatcheries, you know, tons of fish or thousands, millions of fish are being produced through these hatcheries and put back into the water for you to catch down the road. So, give you an idea on license sales, if I said it's up to licenses, this goes back, this shows you that license sales are flat since 1973. What's that, 45, 46 years now? Somewhere around 30 million. It's been as high as maybe 32 million back in 1988, the best year in boat sales ever. And then, you know, it's kind of been dipping. Right now, it's about 29.5 million license sales. We call that flat. Anybody know how many people were in the United States back in 1973? About 212 million people lived in the U.S. Anybody know how many people live in the U.S. today? It's about 329 million people in the United States. Well, the population's increased by 50% since 1973, and yet license sales are flat. We should have 45 million licenses out there, but we don't. It's because fishing in that regard is somewhat on a decline. Now, this slide is not about an increase. Hopefully you can see your state on the bottom. I'm sorry I don't have the Dakotas in there. But it's going to tell you two different things. So on the left side, we're talking about your fishing license sold last year. Annual licenses, whether it's in-state or out-of-state. Those green lines show how many licenses sales there were. So Minnesota sold the most last year in this area, a little bit over 1.4 million licenses sold. And Wisconsin was second, right about 1.4 million, and you can see the states go down from there. So you're one of those people. You could be 10 of those people if you bought licenses in those other states. The red line is based on what's on the other side of the graph. On the right side, when you think about all the money that gets put together, you're not buying just a fishing license, you might be buying a stamp or a tag or a permit that goes with it and the other out-of-state stuff. So that all adds up and you have different prices for different states and what you're putting into your price tag. So it's actually Wisconsin that had the most money for fishing license sales, about $38 million last year. So good for them. Minnesota's about 32 million, and you can see the line after that. So that money also is going to conservation and hatcheries and things like that. You combine that with your sport fish restoration funds, and that's pretty much the money that they're spending on your state. So what I say about that is, number two, buy your fishing license. You guys, everybody has their fishing license, right? Of course you do. Only a couple of people raise their hands. You have it for your state, you have it for the other states. I'm preaching to the choir on that one. But buying a fishing license not only allows you legally to fish in that state, but it also, that money goes to conservation, and it can allow the state to get more money from the sport fish restoration funds. So this is easy so far. What have I told you? Buy fishing tackle and buy a license. All right, we're cruising. All right, so the Secretary of Commerce, Wilbur Ross, said to us back in September when he heard from this Bureau of Economic Analysis that the outdoor recreation community is worth more than $800 billion a year. Wow, that's a lot of money. That's 2.2% of the GDP. And fishing and boating are the most important outdoor activities. Wilbur Ross said it himself. This is big news for us. This puts us on the map. This shows that we're relevant. It's just, fishing isn't just something you do on the weekend. It's big business. And so we need to take advantage of that. Now, you folks in the back, I know you can't read this. But this information is available on our website. And I can break this down, not only the state of Wisconsin and Minnesota and all 50 states, but I can break this down into each district that you have in your state. So I know Wisconsin has 8 districts, Minnesota has 8 districts, Michigan has 14 districts. You've got House of Representatives for each district. You can take this type of information into these folks. What I want you to look at, now the bottom part's the same on all of our graphs here, but you'll see here that Wisconsin had about 1.66 million anglers go fishing last year. They spent $1.5 billion in Wisconsin. It supported an economic output of $2.3 billion and supports 21,500 jobs. That's fantastic. Around the country, it's a $114 billion business and 828,000 jobs. That's from going fishing. This is awesome. Minnesota, almost 2 million anglers, spent $2.4 billion. Economic output, $4.2 billion, 35,000 jobs in your state of Minnesota. This is good stuff. Indiana, a smaller state, but 1.3 million anglers, almost 700 million, $1.1 billion economic output, and over 10,000 jobs. Illinois, almost 2 million anglers, $1 billion, $1.7 billion economic output, 13,000 jobs. We've got to use this information. People don't know how valuable fishing is. Michigan, 2.3 million anglers, $2.5 billion. So Ohio, New York had the most anglers in this group, 2.7 million. Long Island does a lot of out-of-state stuff too. But overall, you're talking about, again, 49 million anglers, and they're spending $115 billion, and that gets the attention in Washington, D.C. So, number 3, I want you to go fishing. Gee, let's see, buy a license, buy tackle, go fishing. All right, this stuff's way too easy for you guys, so I'm going to get a little bit more difficult now. I'm going to tell you a little bit more about what we do and what you can do to support the effort, okay? So ASA, again, we've got an advocacy arm. I'll talk about Keep America Fishing. We've got a 501c3, it's called Fish America Foundation. We do a lot of work in D.C., and we have our trade show. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on the trade show. Trade show is a lot of fun. All right, this is the next question. How many of you have been to the ICAST Fishing Tackle Trade Show? So you guys you're our industry folks, and it's a pretty good time. It's about 15,000 of us get together right now in Orlando, Florida, in July. There's no place you'd rather be in July than Orlando, Florida. But 15,000 people get together, have over 600 exhibitors, and man, it's a good time. I just love it. I've been going to that show. This will be my 30th one, as a matter of fact. And even though I've only been in the association for 5 years, I love this show. So let me talk to you about these other things. How does this work, this government stuff? So ASA, we're an organization of only 18 people. I've got about 5 or 6 that are full-time on government affairs. And so we work with the federal, and we'll work with the state. And so at the federal level, you've got kind of the 2 areas. You've got your legislative, that's the Congress, the House, and the Senate. And then you've got the executive, which is the administration. That gets into the group I was showing before, NOAA, Interior, Fish and Wildlife, those types of folks. And so at the governor's side, we might work a lot more with the state of, say, Florida, that we have 2 full-time employees down there. They got pretty good fishing there 12 months a year. Our fishing industry will say that they probably do as much as 25% of their business in Florida each year, out of everywhere else, 25% in Florida. So it's a pretty important state. Again, in the back you can't see this, but these are some of the items we're working on right now. So whether it's invasive species up here, we've got in the Northeast, you're going to be talking about managing striped bass all the time, or you're going to be talking about summer flounder, and menhaden, certainly a big deal. In the Southeast, right now in the South Atlantic, we were able to pass this Billfish Conservation Act to make sure that billfish couldn't be on the menus, and to make sure that we don't have longliners near the coastlines. And then we have, in the Gulf of Mexico, you've probably heard about red snapper. Red snapper is such a big deal, but we're able to make sure that we have some days to go fishing. And when you're able to, this is an access issue. It's not just about being able to go out on the water, but if you can't fish for a species, you're being limited access. And so we know that when we were able to get 39 days of fishing for red snapper, that the business of the retailers in those areas went up 20%. And that's me calling them and asking them that. And they can say their business went up 20% just for red snapper season. West Coast, my gosh, California. Anybody here from California or live in California? No, good. California, boy, who are we streaming this to? The folks in California, they're tough. They're tough. I'll hold that. I'll hold that thought. So I will get back to them. So the fourth thing I'm going to say that I want you to do is you need to get educated about your state and about the federal issues that are out there. Now, I mentioned that there's some of this stuff is on the asafishing.org website. The other part of it is this Keep America Fishing. So this is our advocacy arm. This is getting outside of the industry and really being more broader base. We want to track the issues that affect fishing, and we want to be the voice of the American angler. We want to protect your right to fish. So coming back to California for a second, Fish America Foundation's been around just since 2008. It's our friends in California that decided, geez, we can't kill all the fish, so we're going to close these areas to fishing, the marine protected areas. And they're like, well, it's only 7% of the coastline of California. Of course, it's the 55% that's fishable is what they wanted to close. And they did. And we failed at stopping that from happening. And we don't want that to happen again. And so we create Fish America Foundation, and we need everybody to get involved in something like this. It doesn't matter if you're not in California. If it happens there, it can happen here. It can happen in Florida. It can happen on the East Coast. And so we created this to try to educate folks, try to engage with you, try to connect and have you understand what we're trying to do and have you get involved with some of these decisions. So we have about 1 million people involved with this between emails, our website, social media, and it's about communicating with your legislators. It's about understanding the issues, and it's about making sure that if it comes around to issues that are going to affect your time on the water, that you get involved. This would be an example of a campaign that we've done where they were trying to close some waters in Florida. And so it's very blunt, access denied. It's like not being able to get a credit card or something like that, that you're being denied access to waters that you weren't allowed to go in the year before. And so we get the word out. We try to get it, we're a relatively small organization, but if we can put this in 25 publications that are reaching 10 million people, then that's something we need to do. And then it's a matter of people need to still make phone calls and get involved. So, got a little harder. I've asked you guys to learn and get involved. Now I want you to be an advocate. I want you to be able to go to keepamericafishing.org and pay attention to the issues and sign up so that we can send you emails, because I can guarantee you something's going to come up in your backyard or that's going to affect you in the next month, that we're going to send you a note and we're going to ask you to send a letter. We're going to make it easy for you. These letters are going to be, how many people have signed up for Keep America Fishing? Anybody? Well, good. We're going to have about 300 new folks in after today, right? It's easy. We'll write the letter for you. We just want you to basically hit send, okay? And that note will go to your congressman or your senator. Okay. So this is amazingly exciting news. I'm not sure how many of you heard about the Modern Fish Act. Brian mentioned it yesterday during the business meeting. But we actually passed legislation this week. I mean, so Modern Fish Act, it sounds pleasant enough. And there could be a long dissertation on this, but the Magnuson-Stevens Act was put in place in the mid-'70s, and that was really, it's for saltwater fishing, and that was designed to help protect our saltwater fisheries and push the other countries outside of 200 miles around our United States, and it helped dramatically. But there's also a lot of old knowledge-based bad science that went into that. And so we try to reauthorize that bill with better science and better information. And so the last time it was signed was back in 2008, or 2006, excuse me. And so when it comes to a bill like this to try to get Magnuson passed, if you've noticed, Congress doesn't get a lot done. Anybody notice that? Yeah, so that's generally bad, but there's also good in that. It should be hard to pass a bill. You don't want them passing a lot of things that they don't know what they're talking about, or they don't know what the ramifications are after the fact. So it should be hard to pass a bill. This is a little intense, a little extreme, but this goes back now 5 years that we put out a document called the Morris Deal Report, and it showed why recreational fishing matters. Because right now, NOAA thinks about commercial fishing. They don't really think about the recreational angler. And so they think about tonnage, and they think about take. They don't really think about us going out and enjoying a day on the water and releasing most of the fish that we catch. And so we've now, this law, it was funny because timing-wise, Pat was there at ICAST last year on our first night. We actually got it through the House of Representatives, that side of the House bill. And it wasn't until just before Christmas that we got the Senate bill through the Senate side, but those were two different bills. So then you have to take that Senate bill back to the House, and just 2 weeks ago, the House passed it 350 to 11, which meant that that same bill then could go to the president's desk, and he just signed it on Monday. So it's not the best bill in the world, but we matter, we're relevant, they're listening to us. It's going to be good for recreational angling. It's going to matter when it comes to how we measure and count the fish, and passing anything in this Congress is really something. And there's so many people to thank. You know, our team does a great job. We work with all these partners as well, and it's all the folks that participated with Keep America Fishing also. RBFF isn't one of those because they're not allowed to lobby for them, but I'll talk about them in a minute too. So it was a big deal for us, and we're excited about it. We still got a lot of work to do. All right, shifting gears again. Pitch It. How many of you guys know about Pitch It? Wow, okay. We got work to do, folks. Now, it's not to say that you're not already good stewards of dealing with soft plastic baits. I'm sure you are. But if you didn't know, back just about 5 or 6 years ago, the state of Maine tried to ban soft plastic baits. Not allowed to use them. Well, that would suck. Anybody here use soft plastic baits? Could you imagine not being allowed to use them? So fortunately, again, you get together, Keep America Fishing. Folks from Cabela's were really helpful with this. We got 70,000 letters sent to that state Congress and said, we don't agree with this. And they stopped the bill. But that's the kind of thing that we're up against. It's one thing to pass a bill of stuff you want. It's also important to stop the stuff you don't want. And so when we looked into this more about soft plastics, we realized it is more of a littering problem that, you know, most of the baits out there used are soft plastics, and you really shouldn't throw them over the side of the boat. They don't go away. As a matter of fact, they live longer in the water than they do out in the hot sun. And so, and we know that you're all conservationists, and so it's just important that we think about these things, and that you know, we take advantage of the resources that we have to raise awareness and make sure you're throwing away your baits properly. So even Grizzly Chewing Tobacco is getting on board and giving us money. We're going to have a lot more stations out there to throw away your baits that after you've used them. We think we can get 1,000 pounds collected. We know that it's already happening in a lot of states. I'm sure it's happening. You see it at FLW tournaments. You see it at bass tournaments. I'm not sure if it's happening through NPAA right now as far as bins, but we'd be glad to get bins to you folks as well. But in just those 11 states alone, we're looking at about collecting 1,000 pounds of soft plastics that are used, and try to throw them away properly. So the next one is do your part. Make sure you're throwing out these baits. We want you to go on our website and sign the pledge that you're going to do that. We want you to tag us and share some of the social media we have regarding soft plastics. KVD did a nice job with us just a couple years ago with a video that's also on the site. All right, I'm not going to get into the invasive species today. You guys know more about it than I do living in this backyard. Obviously, it's a huge issue, and so I'm just going to kind of support the cause and say, you know, my number 7 for you is be sure you clean, drain, and dry your boats, and I'm sure you do that. I just want to make sure that you share that information with everybody else as well. Okay, continue to move on. Quickly on Fish America Foundation, this actually was created by Zebco 30 plus years ago. And they wanted to help fishery restoration. And you have your state money, you have federal money, but that's a lot of times not enough. So about 20 years ago, ASA took over this foundation, our 501c3. And over the course of 30 years now, we've supported over 1,000 projects and put $10 million into this so that you can either take out an old dam or repair a waterway that has been damaged over time. And it allows for more fishing to take place. So I wanted to mention that also through the federal agencies, you probably can't read all that as well, between National Park Service, Forest Service, Fish and Wildlife, Bureau of Land Management, there's about 70,000 employees between just those 4. They have a $12 billion budget between those 4, and they're doing things like restoration, and they want to get more involved with fishing. I don't know how many fishing events National Park Service does or Bureau of Land Management does, but Fish and Wildlife has about 4,000 fishing events, and even Forest Service has over 400 fishing events. They could use help. they're going to do it without the knowledge that you have. And so I ask that you look at trying to see if you can serve on some of these with some of these folks. So number 8 is see if you can't volunteer at the state and federal level. You got a lot of volunteers here. You guys are doing a lot of volunteering. I very much appreciate that. There's more to be done from a restoration side. Okay, near and dear to my heart. R3. Have you guys heard these terms put together before? Recruitment, retention, reactivation. This is huge. This has become really our mantra. This is, we can't emphasize enough the need to do all 3 of these things. And I'm going to talk about them right now. So, I'm not sure if you knew that, I'm sure everybody in this room probably started fishing before the age of 18. The numbers would tell me that maybe 3 people in this room didn't start fishing before the age of 18 because 94% did and 6% started after 18. So what does that mean? I mean, that's a recruitment thing. Everybody's getting recruited when they're kids. This graph will tell you that the participation of kids is way down. So if you can't see the numbers at the bottom, back in 1990, kids between the age of 6 and 15 were introduced to fishing, 38% of them. That's a lot. That's pretty good. Problem is, since 1990, we're down to about 25% of the kids between the age of 6 and 15 fish. That's a huge drop in a relatively short period of time. What happens after that? Guess what? The number keeps going down. So this now shows the bottom 6 to 12-year-olds. This is in just any given year, this is a number. So in 2015, 24% of the kids from 6 to 12 fished. That doesn't sound so bad. But by the time they're 45 and over, only 14% are fishing. Now think about this. What did I say? It's already 30 years ago, 1990, and we were at 38% of those kids fishing, 6 to 15. Now over 45, that's 30 years later, we're down to 14. What happens with this number 30 years from now? This retention is not good. If we could keep the 24% going on forever, we'd have 77 million anglers. We'd have all the money we'd ever need for fishing. But it drops, and this is not a good trend based on where we were in 1990 and what's going forward. You get it? We got to be careful that it doesn't just fall off the table. You know, some good news is there's 126 million people that actually have fished in the U.S. out of that 329 million. That's a lot of people. But I'll say 49 million people went fishing last year. 49 is a good number, but that means there's 77 million people that have fished before that didn't fish last year. I don't know why not, but let's ask them. Let's take them fishing. Let's make sure that they get out and remember how much fun they had out on the water. Huge opportunity for growth is reactivating these folks. So you got to recruit, you got to retain, you got to reactivate. So I ask you, number 9 is take somebody fishing, anybody fishing. Take a lot of people fishing. Brothers, sisters, aunts, uncles, friends, enemies. Take them out in the water. Get them out in the water. We need your help. Because if you can recruit these, if you can do the recruiting, if you can do the retention, if we can do some of the reactivation, we're going to keep the bucket full. We talk about a leaky bucket. We have 3 to 5 million new people come in every year. And we have 3 to 5 million people leave the sport as well. And we know that we've got a lot of baby boomers that we're not going to be able to fish forever. We're going to try. So we've got to go after this younger generation. So I saw a bunch of the younger folks in here. How many here were born after 1997? How many of you guys? You guys are the future. We've been talking about it. You guys are key. And so we want to make sure that you're participating in this sport. We want you to get your friends out there. You're the peers that are going to get the other kids fishing. Our big push at ASA over the next few years, working with RBFF and other folks, is getting fishing into schools. I know it exists in some schools, but it doesn't exist in all the schools. And we need to be able to make sure that we're getting more involvement. getting more in the summer camps. I mean, I love what these guys are doing out here, Brian and Tom with those groups. I hope you're talking to them. They need help. They need not just so much financial, they need support of people being out there in the field working with them. So we need to be able to diversify, to try other types of fishing. You know, get out and try catching other species. It's so much fun. Try a fly rod. You know, what a great time. And then eventually they'll get to more of the tournaments and club level. So the big push right now with RBFF is that we're trying to get to 60 million anglers in 60 months. That's actually started a couple of years ago. So by the end of 2021, we want to get to 60 million anglers. We've grown from 45 to 49. That's pretty good. But through RBFF, working with ASA and a bunch of other groups and Pat and others, we're going to try to hit that number. So somewhat in closing, my number 10 is, had to have a number 10, just have fun. This is fishing. This is not work. I've been playing my job's been playing for the last 30 years. I'm very fortunate. I hope you guys enjoy what you do, but make sure that you're having fun out on the water. So the quick review is then, if you can see that, you're going to buy your fishing tech, you're going to get your fishing license, you're going to go fishing. Those are easy. Get educated, do the advocacy. It's a little more difficult. You're going to dispose of your plastic baits, and you're going to make sure you're cleaning your boat. I hope you can volunteer and help the cause out there. If I can be of any service to you, we have our websites between ASA Fishing, Fish America Foundation, ICAST, and Keep America Fishing. So I thank you, and if I can answer any questions, I'll be around the rest of the day and tomorrow morning. Thank you very much.
So